The art of seeing. Having the ability to see physically is a wonderful gift. But you know, we not only see with our eyes, we also see with our mind and we see with our heart. To see also means to understand, to perceive, to comprehend, to realize something, to grasp something, to perceive something. But you know, when we're fearful, when we're worried or we're angry, we often do not see things as they are. We see them, as Eric Butterworth says, we see them as we are. In our human expression, fear, worry, and anxiety cause us to see the worst in ourselves and see the worst in others and see the worst in the situations that are challenging us. And one of our human traits is that we have the tendency to go off half-cocked in our thinking, meaning we tend not to wait for the rest of the story. I'm remembering Paul Harvey, who did a radio program. Some of you, Alicia, are too young, okay, to have to be aware of that program. But he would always leave a cliffhanger when he was giving his special story. And you always had to wait for the return when Paul Harvey would say, "And now for the rest of the story." And whatever he would say would just kind of totally turn around in your thinking what you were thinking that his story was leading to. He was very good at that. But we tend not to wait for the rest of the story before we go charging ahead with our assumptions about things, about people, about situations. An assumption is something that is accepted as true or is certain to happen without proof. And it often turns out to be a false understanding. Here's a story that I think illustrates this. A senior citizen explained his situation. He said, "I feel like my body has gotten totally out of shape. So I got my doctor's permission to join a fitness club and start exercising." And he felt pretty proud about that. "I decided," he said, "to take an aerobics class for seniors. I bent and I twisted and I gyrated and I jumped up and down and I perspired for an hour. But by the time I got my leotards on, the class was over." How many of you did not see that coming? The Business Dictionary online gives the warning that when people are they are in doubt or they're feeling confused about something, they begin to make inaccurate assumptions that are far from true. It states that assumptions are accepted cause and effect relationships, or, and I like this one, assumptions are estimates of the existence of a fact. Although useful in providing a basis for action and for creating what-if scenarios to simulate different realities or possible situations, assumptions, says this dictionary, are dangerous when accepted as reality without thorough examination. And here's a story that illustrates to me how dangerous an assumption can be. A couple in Sweetwater, Texas, had a lot of potted plants out on their patio. And during a recent cold spell, the wife decided she was going to bring in several of those pots to protect them from the possible freeze. And it turned out that in one of those pots, there was a little green garden snake. And when the snake had warmed up, the little thing slithered out. And the wife saw it go under the sofa. And she gave a horrendous scream. Her husband, who was taking a shower, came running out of the bathroom to find out what was the matter, and he was naked. And she said, "There's a snake here. He's gone under the sofa." And so he got down on his hands and knees to try and find this snake, okay? He thought it was just going to be a quick thing, grab the thing and throw it outside, okay? So while he was down there, the family dog at that moment came into the living room and cold-nosed him on the behind. He screamed because he thought it was a snake who had bitten him, and he fell out on the floor. His wife, thinking he had had some kind of heart attack or something, went and got a blanket and covered him and said, "Just lie still, okay?" And she called the paramedics. The attendants rushed in. They wouldn't listen to his protests, and they loaded him on the stretcher. And they started carrying him out of the house. About that time, the snake decided to come out from underneath the sofa, and the emergency medical tech saw it, and he dropped his end of the stretcher. And this is how the man's leg got broken. And while he's still in the hospital. Well, they managed to take him away, and the wife still had the problem of the snake in the house. So she called on a neighbor who volunteered to come over and get rid of the snake for her. So the neighbor came over, and he armed himself with a rolled up newspaper, stack of newspaper, and he began looking and poking with this thing underneath the couch. And after a while, he declared that, well, it was gone. So he told the lady that, well, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It's obviously gone. And so with relief, she sat down on the sofa. And while she was sitting there, her hand kind of went in between the cushions where she felt the snake wiggling, okay? She jumped up and she fainted, dead away. And he didn't know what to do, so he tried to do CPR on her to bring her back, okay? And it just so happened that his wife had just returned from a shopping trip, okay? And she stopped over, and she saw her husband kissing this other woman. So she grabbed her bag, the bag full of cans, and whacked him in the head, okay? This knocked him out cold. And it also created a gash that required stitches, okay? This story is full of a lot more assumptions, okay? It's good. Anyway, so then all this commotion and all this noise woke up the other woman, okay? And she looked over to see her neighbor lying on the floor, okay, and his wife crying over him, and she was sure that that snake had bitten him. She dashed into the kitchen and got a bottle of whiskey. Why she thought that, I don't know, but she came back and proceeded to try to pour that down his throat. And there was so much noise going on that now the police, someone had called the police had arrived. Okay, now breathe, everyone, breathe. Okay, the police arrived. They saw the unconscious man lying on the floor. They smelled the whiskey, and they assumed that there had been a drunken fight. They were about to arrest all of them, okay, when the women tried to explain that it was all because of a little green garden snake. And the police, they called another ambulance to pick up the unconscious man. And this vehicle went ahead and took the man and his wife away. Now, the little garden snake, again, crawled out from under the sofa. And one of the policemen drew his gun and shot at it, and he missed the snake, and he hit the leg of the end table. The table collapsed, the lamp that was on it fell off and broke. And the bulb, when that crashed and broke open, it ignited the drapes on fire. The other policeman tried to beat the flames out that were on the drape, and he fell through the window. And he fell through the window in the yard on the dog. The family dog was so startled, it jumped up and ran into the street. And a car, to avoid hitting the dog, crashed into the parked police car. Now, the neighbors saw that there was fire going on, and someone called the fire department. Now, the fire department, as they were coming down the street, they began letting up their ladder too soon. The ladder broke some of the wires in the street, and it knocked out the telephone service in a 10-square city block area. But they got the fire out. Time passed. Both men who had been placed in the hospital were discharged from the hospital. The house was repaired. The dog came home. The police acquired a new car, and all was right with their world. A while later, this same couple was watching TV, and the weatherman announced another cold snap for that night. And the wife asked her husband if he thought that they should bring in their plants for the night. And that's when he shot her in the butt. Everything that happened in this story happened because of assumptions being made about what people thought they knew was the truth of the situation. The late Unity minister Eric Butterworth wrote, where we are in consciousness has everything to do with what we experience and what we see in our experience. And our job, he said, is not to set things right. Our job is always to see things right. We are all so much more than can be seen with the eye. And so it is really best not to negatively judge ourselves, other people, or the situations that we encounter. Because we're always looking from the outside, and only God knows our hearts and the full workings of divine love that are taking place in the situation in our lives. So the question is, how do we see rightly? How do we see ourselves and others and challenging situations rightly? Unity teaches that we all have been born with 12 basic spiritual gifts or faculties, or Charles Fillmore calls them spiritual powers. And these make up our spiritual, physical nature. And we use these 12 spiritual gifts every day, even without realizing it. Charles Fillmore called them the 12 powers of man in a book he wrote by that same name. These 12 spiritual faculties are faith, imagination, judgment, will, love, life, power, strength, order, understanding, zeal, and renunciation. And these 12 spiritual faculties are represented by Jesus' 12 disciples in our Unity teachings. And just as Jesus called his disciples to work with him in his ministry, we, in our spiritual development, call on our spiritual faculties, our disciples, to work with us in our experiences. So the two faculties that I'm going to speak about now are faith and imagination, because these two work together and they have to do with our spiritual vision, our being able to be aware of our wholeness and completeness in God. Faith and imagination move us past assumptions based on limiting facts and tune us into the truth, which is actually beyond facts. Outer facts change. They change all the time. At one time, it was a fact that the sun moved around the earth, and it was a fact that pneumonia could not be cured, and neither of these are true any longer. Charles Fillmore wrote about the connection between faith and imagination. He said that faith is the perceiving power of the mind, and it is linked with the ability to shape and mold substance. Well, that shaping and molding of substance, that's carried out by the spiritual faculty called the imagination. And faith is a magnetic power that draws to us our heart's desire from the invisible substance of God that's all around us. So whatever we need, there is an answer for it. There is an infilling for it from this invisible substance that is all around us, that's part of us and part of this universe created by God. Faith is our deep knowing that the thing that we seek is already ours. We have but to open our minds and hearts to receive it and then act on the guidance that we are inspired with. Some have said that the imagination is the scissors of the mind. So I kind of grew up in Unity thinking of the way scissors operate and what we use them for. As a kid, did you ever work with those paper dolls? Either the female paper dolls or the male paper dolls, okay? And usually the doll itself is made out of a heavy kind of cardboard, and there was a bottom platform with a slit. You can put that in there and the doll would stand, okay? I see you some, even you, Alicia? Okay. Just checking in with our youngster here, okay. And they had different outfits that you could put on them, okay? Remember those? This was on a separate piece of paper, and you cut these out, and they had little tabs around, like on the sleeves, like on the pants and those kind of things, and you would put them on the doll by fastening those little tabs in back of the arms or the legs of your doll. It was a lot of fun, and it did allow for a lot of creativity for a lot of children, because I began making my own outfits, and I'd have to make the little tabs, okay, and sometimes the little tabs weren't placed right, okay, and so the clothes would fall off. Okay, but it was a learning experience. It was an exercise in using the gift of imagination. Well, our imagination is exactly that. Faith is represented by the doll, and the ability to cut out the outfits, whether it was, and sometimes it wasn't just clothes, sometimes it was like a fireman's outfit, you know, or a policeman, okay, so you can dress up your doll as a uniformed person, okay. But the ability to cut this out, this is the working of the imagination, okay? The imagination allows us to cut the materials we need from spiritual substance. My mother sewed, okay, and my grandmother sewed. Consequently, I did not sew. There was no reason for me to sew. And if they gave a fail pass, I would have flunked out of sewing class, okay, because I really, really wanted to be in the shop, okay, making stuff, okay? The guys were using these swell tools and stuff like that, and you know, that would have come in handy with my home ownership thing here, because I really work at fixing my stuff, my plumbing and other things like that. It's amazing to me, okay, that I am able to do this, and it is a testament to the gift of imagination, okay, that I am able to envision myself being successful at my plumbing things, and I'm proud to say that I have been able to change washers on faucets, okay, and just talk to me sometime, okay, about how amazing I am, okay. Granted, several friends have purchased for me various do-it-yourself home project things, okay, and they've been very good. They've been very, very helpful. But I attribute my success to my being able to see myself doing these things. Now, there are neighbors that I could call, male neighbors, who probably have been doing all these kinds of things all their lives, okay? But I need to be able to see myself successful at doing these things. And so it's been an interesting thing. My mother was very good with her hands and crafts and those kinds of things. I mean, she used to make lamps, okay, out of those old phone books, those really thick ones and stuff. Put several of those together, glue that together, okay, for the base of just amazing things, okay. And I did not inherit those kinds of gifts, okay. My mother, I remember in my mind is the image of my mother behind the television set. This was one of those sets that had these tubes in it, okay? And my dad was always amazed. He called her Dr. Banks, okay? But Dr. Banks was behind the television set taking out tubes, okay? How did she know how to do this, okay? My mother did not graduate high school. She went to 8th grade and then dropped out, okay? And she would mess with the tubes and replace things in there, okay? She was a genius. And my dad and the rest of us were in awe of her. But my mother saw that she could do these things, okay? She wasn't the type who, when you got something, she would read and study the instructions. She already knew it, okay? And so I tried to do that in my younger years of owning a house and that kind of thing. It didn't work. I would have to take things apart. So I learned that I need to read those instructions and work with that, because that was not my gift. But I envisioned that I could read those things and understand them and follow them. So I was good. The imagination is a powerful thing. And you combine that with faith, which says, whatever it is I need, whether it's wisdom, whether it's guidance, whether it's how to, that is available to me right now. Combine faith and imagination, and you can do almost the impossible. That's how Fillmore expressed that. Now, in the passages that I shared in your program, I believe that Jesus is giving us a prescription, a process in the art of seeing. These passages for our home audience are from Matthew 21, verse 12 through 17, and then 20 through 24. And a little background here. Before these passages, as this opens up, Jesus and his disciples are going back to Jerusalem. It's another feast day. And so he and his disciples, who are good Jews, are going to Jerusalem for the feast day. And usually those took a week. And on this particular day, it happened to be what became Palm Sunday. He had two of his disciples to go ahead, to go forward, and to secure a donkey that had been prearranged. And they brought that donkey to him, and they laid cloaks upon the donkey, and Jesus rode into Jerusalem on that triumphant entry. And the people who were at festival, who heard he was coming, rushed out, and you know how the story goes. They took branches from the palm trees, and they laid them on the path, on the road. They took their outer garments off and laid those on the path where Jesus was traveling to honor him. And so Jesus entered Jerusalem, but the day wore on, and his disciples to leave to go to Bethany. What they did was they stayed in Bethany with Jesus' friends, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And they'd stay there at night, and then in the morning they'd get up and they'd walk out and go to Jerusalem for the day. And so this happened all week. And so on one of these, we have the opening here that I've shared in the program. As they were leaving Bethany, Jesus got hungry, meaning they've left Bethany and now they're on their way back to Jerusalem. And seeing in the distance a fig tree covered with leaves, Jesus went to see if he could find any fruit on this tree, and there was none on this tree. But I think it's strange because Scripture also tells us that Jesus knew it was not the season for there to be figs on this tree. So why does it seem that Jesus got upset? And Scripture says that he cursed this tree, saying, "May no one ever eat from you again," to this tree. Now, his disciples were listening and wondering about this. And on this particular day, after moving past the fig tree, they came to the temple. And this is the time when Jesus entered the temple, and he looked and saw that the money changers were there, and they were transacting business, and they were cheating the pilgrims who were coming to the temple to place their gifts. They were exchanging. People came from all over. The Jews came from all over to attend the festivals. And they would go to the temple to place their gifts. And they had coins from their native area, and they had to exchange them in the form that the temple would accept. And this is where Jesus saw these pilgrims being taken advantage of. And we understand in the story that he flips over the tables and he chases the money changers out, and he says something about, "This is my Father's house and you're making it a house of thieves." And then once this is all cleared away, they return back to Bethany. And then verse 20, while they were walking early the next morning, they passed that same fig tree. And Jesus' disciples pointed out that now the tree was all withered and dead. And Jesus said to them in verse 23, "Have faith in God. I tell all of you with certainty, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Be lifted and thrown into the sea,' if he doesn't doubt in his heart, but believes what he says will happen, it will be done for him." In verse 24, That is why I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And so I just want to take a look at this, because I think that Jesus in this is sharing a key in the art of seeing with us. So what might this message be? The situation with the fig tree. Since Jesus knew that it was not the right season for there to be figs on the tree, what was his message in cursing the tree for not having the figs that it wasn't supposed to have? I think that what Jesus was saying in this is that, that passage where Jesus says that I am the vine and the Christ is speaking through him. I am the vine and you are the branches. And I think it has something to do with that. And he's basically saying that if our thoughts, if our feelings, if our attitudes, our beliefs are not being fruitful and producing good in our lives, let them be released as he released this tree. Let it go. And the cleansing of the temple, he was clearing out the thieves in this temple. And I think the message here is that we all have thieves that nip at us, thieves that seek to take our time, our attention, our energy from the things that we want to be about. Our fears, the things that we worry about, our anxiety, our feelings, negative feelings about ourselves, our feelings of shame or I am not enough. These are thieves that seek to take away our awareness of our true nature. Expressions of God, created in the image and likeness of God, which means that whatever gifts God has, they belong to us. We are the beloved children of God. So we are to chase these thieves out of our consciousness when we become aware that we are letting them control us and cheat us out of the time, energy, and attention that we want to be placing in other areas of our lives, and things that build us up, and things that nourish us spiritually. And here is a significant key here. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it. Not believe that you will receive it. Believe that you have already received it. Now, most people would find it difficult to be praying for something and to believe that they already have what they are praying for. But this is part of the prescription. This is in the formula. This is what we need to learn to do. And I think that there are two ways of doing this. Giving thanks in advance for something. Thank you, God, I know that you are healing my body, or I know that you are guiding me to whatever is highest and best. Being able to give thanks for something that we are seeking to experience, okay, as if it is real for us right now. This is one way of believing that we have already received it. And then the other way is creating an image of ourselves with that very thing. Whether it's actually a picture, people use the imagination in different ways. Some people can actually draw a whole scene in this mind space right here. Personally, I cannot see, but I sense or feel the image. And so being able to feel what that image is, okay, what does it feel like for me to be healthy and whole, or to be prosperous, if that's what I am praying for? So these are ways that we use the imagination, and what happens is the subconscious level of our mind. You know, we have mind, idea, expression. We also have the Christ superconscious, the conscious mind or soul, and we also have the subconscious, okay, where our feelings and memories are stored, okay? The subconscious mind, it does not know time. It doesn't know space. It doesn't know distance. And so whatever we put into that oven, it bakes. We can whip up a cake or a batch of cookies, okay? And the subconscious mind doesn't care what it is. If we place it in the subconscious mind will bake it, will bring it forth, will inspire us in certain ways, will help us draw to us the people, the situations, will help us be drawn to the people and the situations needed in order for us to experience the fullness of what it is we are hoping to see for ourselves. It is a powerful process. And what I want to do is encourage you to explore the activity of faith and imagination working in your life together. Unity has quite a few resources for the 12 Powers and the 12 Powers meditation by Charles Roth. And included in your program today, I mentioned treasure mapping last Sunday, but I found this very good explanation of how you create and work with faith and the imagination by creating treasure maps or what they call vision boards. Okay? And so I encourage you to look this over and give it a try. It's really a lot of fun, and it's really quite powerful if you are wanting to see things right in your life. God bless you. And now we will move into our meditation experience where I will engage you in a short visualization exercise.